Welcome back, grade 7. Today we are going to start our new unit, Unit E, Planet Earth. And this unit, despite the fact that it is our last unit, it is quite big in terms of the content. The reason being is because this is one of the first time that you are going to learn quite in detail about geography, or any type of paleontology, the one that study fossil, and just basic astronomy too. Because if you think about Earth as a planet, we are quite dense, packed planet, even when you compare it with our planetary system. For example, Mars and Earth are similar, but Earth and Uranus or Earth and Jupiter are quite different, whether that's a big gas planet versus dense solid planet. So this unit will be broken down into quite different chapters. We have 4 different chapters, and even in that chapters, we're going to break things into a section. So consider lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. We are going to focus on chapter 1, Earth's surface undergoes gradual and sudden changes. First thing first, let's start with our science log activity number 1. I want everybody to write down 5 unique things about our planet Earth compared to any other planet in this universe. I mentioned some other stuff, but I want you to pause this video for about a minute and write down 5 unique things about our planet Earth. Generally, if it's normal time, I like to share class example answers, but since we cannot do at this moment, I'm going to put only few of an example in here. First thing first, when it comes to our planet Earth, know the fact that those are quite unique even in our universe because number 1, we have water and abiotic factors. Which is a fancy way of saying we have conditions for any type of biotic factors to grow using those material. And talking about biotic factors, you cannot forget about our good old plants, animals, and any type of living matter. The third unique thing, and obviously you can have way more different answers, but third one that I like to point it out can be, like I mentioned, we are quite solid planet. We are, if you think about just mass and all, dense. And the other planet in this universe, if you consider, even though there are some other planets that have moons, we have satellite. When I say satellite, I'm not talking about the satellite that companies use. I'm talking about moon, the one that rotates our planet. If it goes on and on and on, there are quite a lot. For example, we are rotating around a star called Sun. You can put that too. But in any cases, or something else like oxygen, which kind of overlap with the water and abiotic factor over here. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer most of the time, unless you really put something out of the line over there. Anything along this example answer, if you have it, you're on the right track. Now let's do another activity. I want you to pause this video, read this article, and then quickly share what do you think this article is telling you. If you think about this article, the answer can be quite obvious. As you can see from this diagram directly, we are having volcanic activity. And volcanic activity, if you think about it, this is another unique feature that Earth has. If it's a gas planet, then you don't have a solid Earth plate, so you don't expect to have a volcanic activity at that stage. Similar deal as the first one, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to look at the article number 2, briefly read it, and talk about or write about what you think this article is telling you about. Just like the first one, it is talking about Earth activity, except we are talking about the wave format that you see most often in Japan. Country itself give you a little clue. Philippines undergoes too, and there is a direct message over here, massive earthquakes. So in this case, instead of volcanic activity, we are talking about earthquake activity, which is, like I mentioned, another part of unique Earth activity. Like I said, when it comes to Saturn, for example, the one that has a beautiful ring around at their equator section, Saturn is gas planet. It's a fancy way of saying you don't have a solid foundation at the core, unlike Earth and Mars. So because of those situations, earthquake is not possible yet. Now let's talk about Earth in detail. Similar as before, anything that I put different color is basically fill in the blank section, ladies and gentlemen. Earth is a planet that is in constant motion and undergo constant change. And when it comes to constant motion, obvious unique feature of the Earth is we rotate daily. You guys know one revolution means one day. We have morning and evening. But at the same time, we also rotate around the sun. If there's a sun or in the pictures. So that itself is in constant motion. And at the same time, we have moon that also go around the circle as a satellite. So as you may notice, we are undergoing a lot of constant motion and changes. Plus, some motions are dramatic and sudden. On the other hand, some are gradual. Dramatic and sudden events are what you see in the previous pictures and activity that we just did, which is our volcanic activity and earthquake activity. And one of the sudden events that we can think of is obviously magma and lava that is under our Earth crust. We have quite a lot of heat that is being produced at the core of the Earth. So intense amount of heat that is from deep inside of the Earth basically create volcanic activity, and volcanic activity happen because of a crack on the plate. And if you can see a little bit behind, there is a plate behind, there is a plate at the front. Imagine a collision or gap that happen create volcanic activities. If you think about earthquake, that's another sudden event. Earthquake happen because huge plates of rock moving across the surface, and it cause a shock wave. So earthquake, as you can see from this GIF over here, first thing first, we have our Earth plate A, I'm gonna put, and we also have Earth plate B on the other hand. Because of its motion, imagine it's undergoing a direct collision, or it can be side by side like a shear force that you learned in previous unit. Imagine that happen, then there will be a collision. That's a fancy way of saying it produces impact. Because of that impact, we create a shock wave. And that is one of the extreme Earth activity that can damage not only biotic factor, but also other abiotic factors also. When it comes to earthquake, it's impossible to not think about the mountain range. And yes, we have a Rocky Mountain, and yes, Rocky Mountain does play a huge role. Mountains grow upward, while wind and waters wears them down. So that at the same time carry things away. So I want you to look at this GIF that I produced over here. Because of Earth activity, there is a force that is applied from right screen to the left screen. But the thing is, as that happens, can you see that the plate is actually moving upward like that? And because of that upward motion, we suddenly have a hill as a start, but at the same time, a mountain peak is basically what happened, because another plate, if there's a lighter plate, then they tend to move upward, and when it comes to heavy plate, they tend to go downward. So mountain growing will happen too, except when it comes to mountain growing, I want you to put that this is more gradual change. It's so slow by the fact that if in 1 year, if there's a 2 centimeter higher mountain range that happened than previous year, that itself is quite rapid change on Earth scale. So if you can think of Rocky Mountain range, imagine how many years it occurs. It's going millions level. So that was an introduction section, ladies and gentlemen. Let's now go for the chapter 1.1, our main part of the lesson, which is a model for Earth. First of all, let's talk about why scientists use models. Why not we just study the way that things are? Like, why do we need to make globe, if you will? So there are several reasons. I want you to put the first reason. If we're studying something that is just too enormous, Earth is a good example, country is another good example. So when it comes to that, we know that we make globe, model, we also use map, even Canadian map. There are a lot of map available. Those are the reason. We're studying something that is too massive in size, or sometimes our planetary system, right? On the other hand, when it comes to something that is too small, and this is the one where if you're studying, for instance, human body, some people may say, Mr. King, human body is quite big in my perspective. It is true, but what about you're talking about specific muscle layer, heart, etc., etc., or if you're studying bug, those kind of things. If you're studying hands and motion, physiology, those kind of stuffs, we're studying something that is actually too small. What about something that is too complicated? For instance, you are a doctor who's studying the interaction between muscle layer, nerve layer, and blood system. Then you need to have a model in front of you. It's impossible to memorize every single thread. Plus, people have a different body structures too. So those are the example why people are relying on models. Like I mentioned, please look at the diagram. We have a planetary system. Some of you guys memorize this as a jingle, like a Venus and those kind of thing, which feel free. I'm not gonna ask you to memorize those. And we're mainly studying our good old planet Earth, which is located over here. Only green planet that have a life form existed and found. And even if we found something else, it's obviously way beyond our Andromeda, and that's the one that we can find it in this Milky Way. You will learn about this way more in detail in Science 8. If you are the one who's learning about microbiology, cell science, cellular biology, those are the one. It's too small to see and observe, even if you use microscope. We need some models because we're relying on theories, and based on the model, we will know what things do what. For example, this is our good old nucleus. That's the command center of animal cell and plant cell. I'm not gonna go through more in detail, as I said, because you will learn it in grade 8 and grade 10. Something that is too complicated is, well, anything that you can think of in medical department of the science. And if you want to know specifically what you see in here, we call it anatomy. Those are the ones that talk about not only human body, vets study the other animals like puppies, cats, and so on. But long story short, we're talking about interaction of entire complex system in your body. So in that case, we need model to understand how the blood system work with nervous system, with tendons, muscles, bone, and so on. Science log activity number 2 is kind of related to interaction part, and then we are doing online learning, so please omit this science activity number 2. We are going to finish real soon for today, so hang in there a little bit, folks. And Armando, if you're sleeping, please wake up. Forms of models. Models can take many forms, ladies and gentlemen. First thing first, people draw in two-dimensional diagram, and that's something that you see in social class all the time. Map of Canada, map of America, map of the world, those kind of thing. Also, three-dimensional construction, like what you see from previous example. Globe can be the one, Earth model, or any type of dissection of sedimental layer in fossil study. Everything can be an example of three-dimension in that perspective. And models have to take many different formats. I want you to look at the planet cell and animal cell. It should be able to use for comparison, especially if it's similar and familiar object. So two-dimensional drawing example, you can see it at the bottom. Three-dimension one, we didn't go through that much in detail, but this is actually, I believe it's sports ball, but if you can use it for atomic model that we learned in Unit C in chemistry unit. Think about that as a particle. And when it comes to some of those bullshit, we got the idea and make it into globe. Therefore, here's my ultimate definition. A model, ladies and gentlemen, is basically an idea of something that cannot be fully known or seen. What I mean by that is, we know how Earth is look like outside. We know where Canada's located. We know where China's located. We know where Korea's located, if you know where it's located, actually. Study geometry. Then we know the surface area. But the thing is, we actually do not know how the center of the Earth is actually shaped, because we cannot discover that part. There's no way we cannot withstand that high temperature and pressure that magma produce. It is a way of demonstrating an understanding, ladies and gentlemen, based on the indirect evidence or direct evidence. So I like to emphasize about this evidence. And based on that evidence, we build something that I like to call hypothesis. It's educated explanation, if you will. And those are collected by different scientists, interpreted differently, and whatever the common knowledge that we can find, we combine together and we make model. So what is actually inside of Earth? There's a field of science, geology. Geologists use a model to help them understand the inner structure of the Earth based on indirect evidences that we have. Like I said, we cannot go into the Earth, so that's why it was indirect. For example, some of the magma structure and rock, we studied that. So first of all, know that geologists are scientists who study Earth. And here's where I'm going to stop. Today your homework is do the science log activity number 3. Why do you think geologists had to use indirect evidence to model Earth? I kind of give you one reason, but I want you to do 3 reasons. And after that, I also want you to solve 2 questions, number 2 and number 3 from textbook page 356. That is today's lesson.